All right, cool. That's enough of that. How's it going, everybody? It's Matt Tomorrow here. I want to thank you guys for coming through. Thank you guys for coming through on this Friday night. Tonight I am in Orlando, Florida. It feels good outside. It's probably like it says 73 degrees outside. What on earth is that a fucking train passing by? All right, so sorry I couldn't be here last Sunday. Something happened with one of my trucks, and I had to go deal with that situation Sunday. Couldn't come on Wednesday because something else happened. But we need to get into this complicated history of one Richard Bruce Cheney. All right. Even though this guy was responsible for some horrific things, he did try to do the right thing at the end of the day. At the end of his life, he did try to stop Donald Trump from being actually elected president. Even though most of the things that Donald Trump is actually doing did originate from him, from the idea that Richard Nixon should not step down from the presidency. The idea that the president can do whatever he wants to. That is a Dick Cheney idea. It's always has been a Dick Cheney idea that that can happen. Making fun of evangelical Christians to their face and behind their backs is something that Dick Cheney specialized in. He despised the evangelical community. As with all people from the military industrial complex, they do not like the other parts of conservatism, and especially not black conservatives. The military industrial complex do not like black conservatives. They have never tolerated the presence of black conservatives, ever. That's why you never seen Candace Owens around anybody from the military, period. Nobody would ever go on her show, period. Right? Because, like the Charlie Kirk shit, like the military industrial complex uses all of these other elements in order to get their wars going, and they use these people to keep their wars going. They do not care about these people, and they never have. Oh yeah, ask Michael Steele. Oh yeah, but like if he were to die like shortly after the Bush administration, the level of mockery that this person would have faced upon his death would have been far worse, far worse. But there's the thing that you have going here. Now I understand that entertainment is far more entertaining than actual history. But once you understand and learn this history, politics is easy. But only if you understand and learn this actual history that's associated with such. In the Bush administration, the presidency was quite different. People tend to forget that the actual Supreme Court installed George W. Bush and Dick Cheney as the president and vice president of the United States. People tend to forget about that. That the actual Bush versus Gore decision from the Supreme Court, right wing, by the way, was about the stopping the counting of votes. What's going on, Craig, the tech guy? The same way that Donald Trump didn't want votes counted this time. The original idea of that was the Bush v. Gore decision, which stopped the count of votes from the actual state to which George W. Bush's brother was actual governor of. Brother was, say it again, when Donald Trump first ran for president, it was supposed to be Jeb Bush's turn to be president because in the Republican Party, they go off of turns. You're going to be the man. It may look competitive, but they already got a person already slotted in that who's going to be there, right? 2004, I'm sorry, 2008. John McCain, Sarah Palin. 2012, Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan. 2016 was supposed to be Jeb Bush until some person came down an escalator talking about how all quote unquote Mexicans was rapists and took the country by storm, right? Got in to be president, had a presidency ending actual issue every single week that he was president. Right after getting mad of Obama wearing tan suits, putting his foot on desk, none of that matters. Donald Trump was openly able to disrespect Gold Star families, openly call veteran losers, and still was able to be elected president of the United States after doing all of that. So at this point, when somebody says that Donald Trump is doing a good job, you just ask them how, and then you just vacate the conversation. There is absolutely no need or reason to bring people up to speed on anything that's happened politically. Because most people who are talking about politics today don't know what they're actually talking about. They don't have a side picked. And here's the other thing, they all live in liberal areas for the most part. They all live in liberal areas, but they can't find the back of their ass with two hands. And they live in Texas or New York or Miami or any other of these great Philadelphia, these great liberal places, but somehow are so conservative that they never seem to live in the conservative places that they actually want other people to vote for. Remember, professional conservatives live in liberal areas, and unprofessional conservatives live in conservative areas. What's going on, Eric Bird? So we had the government shutdown that has been lifted, and I really don't give a shit about what anybody thinks about it because all of the focus is going on the seven Democrats and independent who actually voted with the actual conservative party to actually reopen the government. There is not one single article about 50 plus personnel from the Republican side doing things that happened during the shutdown. Not one article. All these people want to hold the eight Democrats and one independent to the actual account of reopening the government. Now, if you was actually paying attention to what was actually going on here, you would have seen that the Supreme Court actually did overturn the Rhode Island's decision about actually paying out SNAP benefits. But while the misdirection that they wanted to make it about SNAP benefits, this was actually about the Epstein files being released. And there were some that were being released as of right now. The media does not know how to criticize conservatives. The reason why is conservatives are the ones who actually give them all the tax cuts and break that they actually need to run their actual business. So the media has an incentive structure in place to not cover conservatism as bad as conservatism is. It's built in. People pretend not to see Fox News. They pretend not to see One American Network. They pretend not to see right wing talk radio. They pretend to do that on purpose, by the way. Those farmers lost everything that they actually had, and they're not being reparated over it. They wanted the check to be cut, correct? But they were the ones who voted for all of these things that are actually happening. No one actually thought that the president of the United States would go to the very red states that put him in as president, in the blue, in the actual swing states that actually helped him become president at this time. They never actually thought that this guy was going to go straight to those people and cut benefits from those people and try to make it look like we can't run our government with SNAP benefits being paid to 87% women with infant children and the elderly. But if you listen to most culture warriors online, They pretended as if everybody who was receiving SNAP benefits were a person who's clearly able bodied and actually able to get a job, but they just refused to, which is incorrect. But why do research? Why even go out there and do research? If you could just come online and say whatever you want to. Because upon the Trump administration coming into office, there used to be something that was against misinformation being spread online and on YouTube. But as soon as the administration came into office, they decided to relax those actual constraints. So that way it's a free fire gallery point to where nonsensical people can just say culture warrior based things that are not even true. You just had an interview between Laura Ingraham and the President of the United States, who said out of his mouth the same thing that Vivek Ramaswamy said, that Americans are too stupid to get the jobs in the United States, which is the reason why we need the HB1 visa system. This is something that Donald Trump was never supposed to say out loud at all, while simultaneously trying to make people who had legal status illegal status, and then trying to create a problem and kicking those people out of the country. Because sorry ass American citizens refuse to take the jobs that are here. So they thought that they was going to take those jobs that they wasn't going to go for hostage, and no one else wasn't going to be brought here to do those same jobs. That was incorrect. I think those jobs are open for the people who actually get them and need them. I am from a sanctuary state, Colorado, Denver metro area to be specific. Our system works pretty well. We have training for people who want it. And the people who show up for the training are not the individuals who are celebrating the rounding up of so-called Latinos. They're not going for that training. The only people who show up for that training is mostly immigrants and Latinos. Immigrants in general, Latinos in specific. And because these individuals are taking far more advantage of the American experience than the people, true people, who's too lazy to go get those jobs or even want those jobs, that shouldn't never be happening. This is why I find it very hard for me to take seriously anybody talking about the immigration situation. They always try to curve the situation to, oh man, black men can go and get these jobs. That's not true. If they wanted the jobs, they would already have them. They would already be in them. They would already be crashing the boards for these jobs already, so there's no need to bring in immigrant labor for these actual jobs themselves. So now we have this non-domiciled CDL situation going on here, where people who are not from this country are able to get commercial driver's license and actually drive for actual companies here in the United States. They're trying to take that away from several people in this country who came here to work. Now, would there be an actual need for these people coming here for actual work if actual personnel who was complaining about this came up and actually went there to get CDLs and fill them jobs themselves? The answer would be no. You have to understand that in a free market, open society to which this is, if you don't get the job, then somebody else will. I would never work in fast food, especially as an adult. But I'm not going to stop anybody else from going to get the training to go get that job in actual fast food. And I'm actually not in position to actually want these people to be subsidized by the federal government for having people working those low wage jobs. Like Walmart, very profitable company, but they pay their people so little that they qualify for SNAP benefits. Does that make any sense? Did anybody try to shut down the government because Walmart is actually getting government subsidies for putting their stores into quote unquote food desert areas so they get to run their whole store operation for the free? And on top of running their store for the free, they pay their people so little to where they need actual SNAP benefits. So now they're getting paid twice. Is anybody trying to shut down the government over that particular system? No. Now, the grand majority of actual immigrants in this country work in two career fields. One career field is the service industry, fast food. The second industry is construction. You don't see these people going to construction zones and pulling out immigrants from those areas. You don't see that, do you? The reason why you don't see that is because the President of the United States is in real estate. He wants immigrants to work for his business, but he wants to stop immigrants from working at other people's business. This is why I keep saying the immigration issue is not a real issue. It's a culture war wrapped in misunderstanding of how the actual labor market works. I have to repeatedly tell people that just because I own a company does not mean that I'm a capitalist. I am a skilled labor person who hires other skilled labor. And I, in no way, am trying to actually lessen the value of my actual labor being a skilled labor person who hires other skilled labor personnel. The difference between me and a capitalist who actually do the same business, a capitalist, depending on the size of his or her business, gets all kind of tax breaks from the actual government to run their actual business while actually pretending to be broke, knowing that they're not, putting All right, there we go. Testing, testing. One, two. Let me know if you can hear me. Over? What does that mean? Oh, okay. All right, good. So that's the position that we have here. And that we've been in this place for about 10 years. So there's really no real rational reason to not understand the actual political environment. There's no real reason to not have a side picked. There's no real reason for any of that at this point. It's willful ignorance at this point. And you have to be able to step outside of willful ignorance and be able to have realistic conversations. Like I said about the actual government shutdown, there's no articles anywhere. It's all about the Democrats caving. It's not about the actual hostage situation that the actual federal government put up that started this stuff in the first place. You see no articles on that. You have to stop. pretending that the Democratic Party is going to overcompensate for the actual Conservative Party's failing to actually govern. No one can tell me what type of legislation that the Conservative Party has passed other than the big, beautiful bill since they've been in office. No one can tell you that, right? But these people keep getting elected to government office, but they keep wrecking and destroying the government as they're part of the government. How does that keep happening? And then you got personnel who clearly live in liberal areas claiming that they don't want to participate in the process. So, okay, so your non political participating in the process is going to end up having the following consequences. The actual Supreme Court is going to get rid of the Voting Rights Act. The Supreme Court is probably going to get rid of the Civil Rights Act, which is going to net the Republican Party 20 additional seats across the country. Now, these issues are not being debated like they're supposed to. Like there's supposed to be a debate on issues. There isn't supposed to be some type of shadow docket to where you just okay things to happen and there's no debate over it. I mean, because you don't see any conservatives anywhere. Like you don't even see Jonathan Turley, who they drag out here to defend most of these conservative decisions. You don't hear Jonathan Turley out here defending the potential ridding of the Voting Rights Act. You don't see Jonathan Turley out here defending the decision to have the National Guard on streets, knowing full well you cannot sue the National Guard. You cannot hold the National Guard responsible. The only people who can hold the National Guard responsible is people within the National Guard. And if the president is the commander in chief of the military and the National Guard, and they want you to be out there abusing protesters, there's pretty much no say in what goes on there. Even though a judge has clearly said that there is no insurrection going on, ICE can clearly still do their job. There's no real reason for the military to be out there in force like the way that they are. The police did not call the actual National Guard out there. They started off with the National Guard. Yet the Supreme Court keeps getting rid of lower court decisions without no type of argument about the lower court decision. Again, there's supposed to be arguments about all these things. What's going on, my Perry? So right now we just don't have an operational constitution because the Constitution only exists to serve as a constraint for people who they don't want to have power. So all this stuff over all these years about legislating from the bench and all of these other things, all those things served in an actual position to stop Democrats from doing the things that conservatives was clearly going to do the moment they had the opportunity to do so. Again, if you understood the history of this actual country, which is not that hard, you'll be able to see this stuff coming a mile away. The pardoning of all these individuals for federal crimes, all those attorneys who's not able to practice anymore. Now that doesn't stop them from being charged of any state crimes, because they did happen within individual states. But for the president to come out and pardon all of these individuals, it's crazy. It's out of this world. That's that whole 60 vote majority bullshit, which I'm going to actually address. If they got rid of the filibuster, like you don't want them to get rid of the filibuster right now. If they got rid of the filibuster right now, they would push through a whole bunch of things that would make it very hard for the country to actually operate if they got rid of the filibuster. Before, the filibuster served as an excuse for no one to get any work done because they needed this quote unquote 60 vote majority, unless it was tax cuts for rich people. So that's the BS about the actual filibuster itself. Now, they don't want to get rid of the filibuster because they don't want to pass a whole bunch of laws. So that way, this guy can practically never leave office. But that's what's going on that particular issue. So what you have to realize at this point is if your personal situation doesn't work, that's a your situation problem. No one is going to come through and overcompensate and come fix things in your environment. It's just not going to happen. I agree it has to be expanded, but you really have to constrain how it's actually being used. Because right now, the Supreme Court is being used in a way that it's never been used. Supreme Court has never been a rubber stamp for any administration. That's why you have liberal and conservative justices. That's why you have arguments from a liberal perspective and a conservative perspective. Like there are no constitutional scholars that has ever talked about the unitary executive. And you cannot question the intent of the actual president. That would make this place a de facto dictatorship. All those are new things that are asserted under the Constitution. Most of these people graduated from law school, sat on the bench a very long time. The fact that they believe that the president should never be held responsible for something is something that's eye opening. You should be able to pull credentials against people. And once this administration is over, these people should be answering questions before Congress about how they came to these decisions, about how they did business. Keep that in mind. You can call these people before Congress to answer questions. The only reason why the Conservative Party holds power right now is because of gerrymandering across the country. North Carolina being one of those states. It's the pilot state for all of this. Now, there's a different way of how people are expanding their power base within their state. California did it the right way. You put the proposition on the ballot, you alter your actual constitution, will of the actual people. Texas did not do that. Texas decided we're going to circumvent the actual voice of the people in the actual state, and we're just going to give 5 seats to the actual president because he asked for them. There was no vote there by the people on this singular issue to alter their constitution to do this. Same thing in Indiana, same thing in Missouri. They pushed it through the legislature. Not 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 the voice of the actual people. Because Dallas, San Antonio, Austin is going to look far different. We're not having all that government money come through there. Like it normally would. That is shared with the entire states. So if they don't want to pay for things in the actual state itself, and they're waiting on the government money to come through that these Congress people get through earmarks, quote unquote pork barrel spending to be spent within their state. Now you built all this infrastructure. Now you're not even going to be able to keep up with this infrastructure once those liberals are not in those areas, bringing that money in. And you don't want to raise taxes because you don't want any responsibility to be held toward the people. You just don't want to do anything for the people at all. You want to do plenty of things for corporations, but you don't want to do anything towards for people at all. But you have to fix the Supreme Court. Like there should be no way that you can have Brett Kavanaugh. Brett Kavanaugh said out of his mouth, it's okay for the police to stop you over your race. This is a person that sits on the Supreme Court. He said that out of his mouth. You don't hear any person who's a conservative say anything about that. How did he get so far to be on the Supreme Court and he don't even think that people get to walk around in a society to be free? Notice how this super chat money is drying up around all of these culture warrior spaces? That's the benefit of having a Republican presidency. You don't have the disposable income to give to these grifters that you want to put in place of actual legitimate people. Yeah, remember the last hired, first fired shit? That's what a lot of these people are experiencing. A lot of these people work for the actual federal government. This guy is trying to say that he's going to pick and choose who he's going to have work for free without a paycheck. That works for the government. Knowing full well that is something that cannot happen. But he's going to hold things up in the actual courts. This person is the king of going to the judicial process in order to stop things from happening. Hey man, look. A lot of the market is down. Think about if you are General Mills or Walmart or Kraft Foods or Kellogg's. This person's holding up SNAP benefits and Dollar General, Dollar Tree, any grocery store across the United States. And this guy was playing with your ability to make profit. Because he don't want the same people to get health care benefits. The only thing that's going to do is ask the actual entire country, why on earth are we giving tax subsidies to any profitable corporation? If we can't give $400 to families so that way they can eat to work at these low-wage jobs that they actually work at in this so-called capitalist free market. On top of demolishing half of the White House to put in a $180 million ballroom. Could you imagine if Obama did some shit like that after claiming the country's broke? But the country's always broke when it comes to doing things for people. The country's never broke when it comes to doing things for corporations. The country's never broke when it comes to giving out government contracts. The country is never broke when it's time to start a damn war. The country is never broke when it comes to baying some actual fishermen from Venezuela and claiming that they're drug runners. There's a lot of drugs that come into the United States from Mexico. You don't see Trump predator droning nobody coming across the border with drugs. You don't see him during any administration trying to invade any African country. You don't see that. Again, the media itself has to be split up, divided, and destroyed. You can't have Megyn Kelly on TV justify the abuse of young women
on Epstein Island and she keep her damn job. If any man went on TV and justified the underage abuse of women, they would be thrown off of TV. But if you're a conservative, you get to do it all day. Yeah, she said that. She justified it. Look, the special forces can say what they want about Somalia. They got their motherfucking ass kicked. You went in there like Rambo with a couple of fucking people and you got overrun like you're fucking supposed to. Listen, I don't care what superior tactics that you have. If you have hundreds or thousands of people with weapons, your ass isn't going to make it. Your ass ain't going to make it. The only thing you can do is commit genocide at that point. Trust me, I'm a United States Air Force veteran. And let me tell you, the people got their ass kicked in Iraq and Afghanistan. Okay? You did not have enough troops. They got their ass kicked in Vietnam too. Got their ass kicked in Korea too. Same thing. If you are unwilling to commit genocide, you cannot go to war. If you're unwilling to commit genocide, you should never be trying to go to war. Otherwise, it become a buy and hold strategy for the United States military and war profiteers. That's what all these military interventions become. Buy and hold strategies. Holding the United States military there while spending a whole bunch of money that you don't need to spend. But we're never broke enough to have these military conflicts, right? Trust me, I was over there too, seeing what was going on. Didn't even want to be over there part of that stuff. Nope. Civilianizing most of the actual United States military and increasing defense spending by making everybody deployment people and getting rid of all of the actual career fields and civilianizing everything, privatizing most of the actual military. That's what Dick Cheney's actual legacy is. His legacy is making the military far more fucking expensive. And we had the nerve to have these fake ass, what do you call them, fiscal conservatives not say a damn word while it was happening. Again, the history ain't hard. It's very easy and it's incredibly specific. But you gotta learn it. There's no question that Stephen Miller worked for actual the guy from Alabama, and they wasn't the only one. They wasn't the only one. Anybody who made any type of weaponry made money during that shit. Anybody who created any type of spare parts for the planes made a gang of money off of that shit. And here's the thing, gas prices were lower then than they are now. He did. And he was the first vice president to actually make money off of the actual war while being in office. All that time we spent over there, and they got all that shit back anyway. Again, the history ain't hard. It's very specific if you want to learn it. Or else, you could just go to Culture Warriors waiting on your actual analysis on politics. Nope. Same thing. And the thing was, you think the Bush administration did not know where bin Laden was the entire time? Of course they knew where bin Laden was the entire time if they wanted to find him. But if they would have got bin Laden, then there would be no reason to be at war for so long, right? And you have the nerve of people who try to blame the Democratic Party for the weapons of mass destruction nonsense. Dick Cheney destroyed the reputation of Colin Powell. Colin Powell had to leave public life for a long ass time after he got that war started. Reading that article on weapons of mass destruction. See, people tend to forget all that. That's why I say, look, depending on what side you pick, dude, I don't want to defend none of that right wing shit. I don't want to defend it from the Civil War standpoint. I don't want to defend it from a whole bunch of standpoints. They didn't want to get him in Tora Bora. They wanted to let him slip off into Pakistan. So that way this war can go on for a long ass time. Ah, that Donald Rumsfeld quote, man. We got known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns. Knowing damn well if they wanted to get that dude, they would have got him within a week. They didn't want him. They let him slip away. There's plenty of these special forces grifters online who went to all them wars who told you that they let him go. They said that they let Bin Laden go at Tora Bora. Again, if you don't understand the history, I mean, like, dude, if they hired most people from Iran Contra back into the government to run the Iraq War, they let all those dudes back in there. John Negroponte, all these dudes from the Iran Contra shit was working right back with the government when the Iraq War happened. Dude, it is an expensive proposition to maintain ignorance at this point. You got pro black grifters trying to do left wing commentary, knowing damn well that they stayed their ass at home and celebrated the fact that nothing actually worked, that Kamala Harris lost. There's a lot that's wrong with this actual situation here. A lot. But it all started with handing the presidency to George W. Bush through the judiciary. The decision was about stop counting the votes. Like, you may think this stuff is Trumpism. It's not Trumpism. It's all conservatism. Historical conservatism. Bad ideas that was brought up throughout history. Incredibly bad ideas. What? No, you can't tell these people nothing, man. They rather engage in a culture war. They rather loop the conversation to get right back to discussing relationship issues. It's nobody else's fault but they own. And you got to understand that you can get up out of this situation whenever you want to. Again, this stuff is not going to get any easier to actually solve or resolve. It's not going to get any easier. Again, if you learn the actual history, and it only needs to start at Richard Nixon. Learning about these people from Richard Nixon administration who came up into the Gerald Ford administration, who was around during Reagan's administration and George Sr.'s administration, who ended up in George Jr.'s administration. Learning the actual history is very easy. It's the same people. It's no different than what it was before. No different. But you can't really help people if they got to hear Keisha being trolled before they can understand anything about politics. And their idea about politics is waiting for everybody else to get stuff done so that way they can take credit for it and just walk off into the sunset. But hey, look, you have a right to remain ignorant. Anything that you say can and will be used against you in the court of public opinion. But hey, look, these people choose ignorance on purpose because they think they get more out of progress by just sitting on the sideline and waiting for somebody to get stuff done. I disagree. I think you can solve a lot of problems with your own time and your own situation better than you can waiting on somebody else to do it for you. The life of Richard Bruce Cheney, his 5 heart attacks, his 1 heart transplant, and he still did the proper thing before he died and tried to stop things from getting worse. That's his actual legacy. The outing of a CIA operative during a time of war. You don't know how many people died at the outing the CIA outfit during a time of war. Dude, there's probably hundreds of thousands of people who could have died over that shit. The media sit back and they didn't say a damn word. They just let him do it. It's all conservatism. It's all been conservatism. It always has been conservatism. The entire time. The cultural rot in our actual government has been conservatism. People who go from working in corporate America to heading up the very agencies that that used to regulate them, that's a conservative idea. Saying that the EPA can't regulate pollution is a conservative idea. wanting the government not to function and work so that way they can't even collect taxation is a conservative idea. Yes, having money be property and I mean be having money be free speech rather than property like it clearly is a conservative idea.
I'm like, bro, listen. Expect to be ran out of every conversation. People do not like political freeloaders. They don't like them. But at the end of the day, you cannot escape the responsibility of being a citizen of the country. You cannot escape that responsibility. You have to know what's going on. You have to be able to produce. You have to be able to move to a situation that actually works. All that stuff is your responsibility, not other people to produce it for you. Again, none of this stuff is hard. It's very easy to understand this stuff. If you can recall multiple slave drafts when it comes to the actual NFL, Major League Baseball, the NBA, then it's easy for you to learn about the history of your state. It just ain't hard, man. You can't mean to tell me that you that fried in the brain that you don't want to learn simple and basic shit. But hey, learn from this example, man. All this stuff is still a conservative problem. Every single person that says, "Oh, they're two wings of the same bird," they're too stupid to be a part of the conversation. Don't know shit about the history. Ain't even trying to learn about the history. They're just here to say stupid shit so that way it could be re-explained and broken down to them yet again for the 555th time. You can't be in that position, man. You cannot want to be that type of person. Again, this stuff is not hard. It is very easy. You have to develop a need for it like you develop a need for anything else in society. None of it's hard. And and we can't be the only people talking about it. A lot of this stuff you have to go on your own to go actually catch up with. A lot of people stepped off after the election was over with. Why? They couldn't leverage their middle of the road status when there's a 100% conservative control of things. It's hard to do that. 100% conservative control of shit. You can't leverage your middle of the road status or trying to be reasonable and try to move this both sides stuff when with 100% conservative control. Man, you can't do anything like that. But hey, your first foray into politics, the real field episode, you ain't got both of those things straightened out, you ain't comfortable at, then politics will never matter. Because you got far more immediate concerns than who's running government. If you got to worry about survival episodes. And you refuse to learn and understand how things work. So with that said, I'm just over an hour. I wish you guys a happy rest of your Friday afternoon. Another one in the books. Progressive Politics Weekly. Complicated history of one Richard Bruce Cheney. I want to thank you guys for coming through and staying subscribed to the channel. There's nothing wrong with having substantive-based conversation. It lets you know the individuals who are serious and the individuals who are not. I want to thank you guys for coming through. And man, tomorrow you guys have a really nice rest of y'all day.